Hello friends, welcome again. This is Hybrid Financial Consultants, as you see the name over here. And today we're just going to take a look at a question involving cost volume profit analysis. If you have heard the topic cost volume profit analysis. Now just go directly to one example. So this is our example. A company makes and sells a single product. Yes. The selling price is $1,200 per unit. The variable cost of making and selling the product is $900 per unit, and the fixed cost per month are $24 million. The company budgets to sell 90,000 units of the product a month. Now required. A, you are required to compute the budgeted profit per month, as well as the break-even point in sales. And then we have B, margin of safety in sales units, in sales revenue, as well as in percentage. And lastly, we are told that what must sales revenue be to achieve a monthly profit of $12 million. So this is what we have to compute. So first of all, we have to extract our data. So we have the selling price SP here, 1,200, we are given there. And then we have variable cost per unit, $900. This one, variable cost per unit, $900. And then we are given the fixed cost per month is $24 million. And lastly, you are told that the company budgets to sell 90,000 units here. So all the data given in the question have been collected over here. So let's go directly to what we are required. A, we are told to compute the budgeted profit per month as well as the break-even point in sales. So here we go. How do you obtain profit? We all know that profit equals to sales minus cost, but our cost here can be broken down into fixed and variable costs. So we'll have profit in sales minus variable cost minus fixed cost. But sales minus variable cost gives us contribution. So you can just write it this way, that profit equals to sales volume times contribution per unit minus fixed cost. And now is an abbreviation. This pi here is just an abbreviation of profit. So profit equals to contribution margin per unit, CMU, times Q, which is sales volume minus fixed cost. So from the question, we are provided with Q, which is 90,000 units. What is contribution margin per unit? Contribution margin per unit equals to selling price minus variable cost per unit. Selling price equals to 1,200 and the variable cost per unit equals to 900. So 1,200 minus 900, you get 300 times 90,000, you obtain 27 million, then you less 24 million and you end up with 3 million. So profit budgeted is 23 million. Then we are told to compute the break-even point in sales. The question requires here. Here we are told to compute the break-even point in sales. So here the break-even point is computed. How do you obtain the break-even point in sales? I think you have to remember this break-even point is the point at which sales are just managed to equal costs. Or simply speaking, by break-even point means a zero profit. So instead of coming up with this equation here, you can just come here at the top. Assume this profit was zero. Just assume this profit here was zero. Just put here 0 and then compute. If you put here 0, the sales revenue here would be the sales revenue at the break-even point. But this is a simplified formula. By simplified formula, you can use this one. Sales revenue at break-even point equals to total fixed cost over contribution to sales ratio. CS ratio means contribution over sales. Is here. Contribution margin per unit over selling price. You obtain the CS ratio. So as we said, contribution margin per unit equals to selling price minus variable cost per unit. Then we divide by selling price. So we substitute the data here. This is the selling price, 1,200. Variable cost per unit, 900 over selling price, 1,200. We get 0.25. It's much common to express this contribution to sales ratio as a percentage. So if you put it in percentage, multiplied by 100, you obtain 25%. So you have to note one thing here. CS ratio, contribution to sales ratio, is also known as profit volume ratio, as you will see in the graph, or contribution margin ratio. So it is exactly the same thing. So lastly, sales revenue at break-even point equals to fixed cost, which is 24 million, over CS ratio 25%, and you end up with $96 million. That is your answer. Let me ask one thing. In case you were, or maybe you can see it later, we'll see it in section C. Alright, that's A. Then B, we are told that what is the margin of safety in sales units, in sales revenue, and in percentage. What is margin of safety? Margin of safety actually measures the soundness of the business. Suppose you as the business expect to sell 1,000 units, but you will break even at 600 units. That means that the difference between 1,000 and 600 is 400, and that is the margin of safety expressed in units. That means that even if you fall short of what you expected by 400, you expected to sell 1,000, but if you fail by 400, then it will come to 600 that you actually managed, and that you say is the margin of safety. That means that you can, it's a fall that is allowed without a company carrying a loss. Yeah, that's right. So margin of safety can be expressed in a lot of ways. As you have been asked there, margin of safety, you can say budgeted or actual sales units. It depends on the question. For example, in our question, we have been given the budgeted data, but if we are given actual data, we could use it. So budgeted or actual sales units minus sales units at break-even point. So how do you obtain sales units at break-even point? We all know that sales equals to selling price times quantity. So if you need quantity, you just take sales revenue at break-even point over selling price. And what was our sales revenue? Here, 96 million. Selling price 1,200. So you divide them and you obtain 80,000 units. And then we need the margin of safety. So margin of safety, we break even at 80,000 units, but actually we budgeted to sell 90,000 units. This is what we budgeted. So what is the difference? 90,000 minus 80,000. This was the budgeted units to be sold. You obtain 10,000. That goes to show that we can fall short by 10,000 units before incurring a loss. So margin of safety in units, 90,000 minus 80,000, and we end up with 10,000 units. What if we are to compute the margin of safety in sales revenue? If you need it in sales revenue and you already have it in units, you just take margin of safety in units times selling price, and you obtain $12 million. That means that we could lose revenue of $12 million without incurring a loss. In case you hadn't computed these 10,000 units in advance, you could just take total sales, budgeted sales minus sales at. You could have taken budgeted sales minus sales at break-even point. But also you could be asked to compute margin of safety in relative terms as a percentage. That way you could use units or you could use sales. So you could say margin of safety in units over budgeted units. Margin of safety in units is 10,000, budgeted units 90,000. Normally expressed in percentage, so times 100%, and you end up with 11.1%. As I said earlier, you could also have used sales revenue instead of sales units, at which point you could have used margin of safety in sales revenue, which you already have here, 12 million, or budgeted sales revenue. Actually, haven't computed the budgeted sales revenue, but we all know that sales revenue equals to selling price times budgeted units. Selling price was 1,200, budgeted units were 90,000, so you would have obtained the same answer. Then let's complete it by going to the last section, which is section C. We are told what must sales revenue be to achieve a monthly profit of 12 million. So what should be our sales revenue to earn a profit of 12 million? Now here, you need to know how much should you sell, what value should you manage the sales to achieve a certain profit. Alright, at first point, sales revenue equals to sales volume times selling price. I think this is very much common, it's known. Then how do you obtain sales revenue at a target profit? To obtain sales revenue at a target profit, here is the formula we use. So you just take fixed cost plus profit before tax over contribution per unit. You have the fixed cost as 24 million from the top there. We have profit before tax. We have been told in the question, this one, 12 million. Then we divide by contribution margin per unit, which is 300. We are given here. We are told that fixed cost amounted to 24 million here. Sorry, here. And then we are told the sales revenue to achieve a monthly profit of 12 million. And then we divide by contribution margin per unit, which is selling price 1,200 minus variable cost per unit 900, leaving you with $300. So that's how we go about this. Then you can just substitute in the question and end up with 120,000 units. So this is the sales volume in units. You need to sell 120,000 units to achieve a profit of 12 million. But the question needs sales revenue, not sales units. So to obtain sales revenue, you take sales units or sales volume times selling price, and you end up with $144 million, just as the formula here states. You have to remember the currency. Always remember the currency. This is in dollars. This is dollars. Don't just write 144 million. You have to put dollar there. So for other questions, for this question, you have not one thing. Sometimes you might be given a cost volume profit analysis that involves tax rate, like this one. So you also have to check this example to learn more. Expect it soon. Thank you very much. Support our channel by subscribing. You can subscribe, share the video to others, just like that. Alright, thank you very much.